We want ear, shoulder, hip in line, lower back supported. That's the trifecta. Once you can manage that, that will help to keep you well, which means that you can then provide the best service to your clients and your customers to give them that customer experience that we want.
How can I build my dream business with limited time and resources? How do I level up my marketing? How can I make my brand stand out even more? These were just some of the questions I asked myself when my business started to grow, and these are the ones that my clients consistently come to me with. Well, maybe they don't outright tell me that they have 7 or 8 figure ambitions, but when we get to know one another, that's exactly where they're at. They're busy professionals and they want to grow. I'm Deirdre Martin, the host of the Master Your Business podcast, which is a live workshop style branding, marketing, and customer experience podcast. And if you've been asking yourself any of those questions, or you have those 7 or 8 figure ambitions, this is the show for you, my friend. You'll learn actionable step-by-step tips that help businesses like yours gain clarity and illuminate your path to business success. This show brings you branding and marketing tips, social media strategies, customer experience trends and insights, sales strategies, business and mindset hacks, and inspirational and authentic entrepreneurship stories to help you master your dream business, and so much more. I'll share tangible, actionable, no fluff advice that I use to accelerate my business success. How I went from being a bank manager loaning out 6 and 7 figure sums and helping people invest equivalent amounts of money to helping people make 6 figures instead. I'll share how I became an industry thought leader in marketing and customer experience using digital courses, keynote speaking, and co-authoring a #1 bestseller, all within my first year of business. I learned a lot since I started my business, but I learned even more beforehand. Along with sharing my best kept secrets, you'll find the show to be filled with interviews with industry experts who will share their secrets to ensure you are seen, heard, and hired by your ideal clients. With a growing number of subscribers and downloads, it's your turn to hear from the experts in the Master Your Business podcast. Get motivated and empowered to tackle your most significant challenges along your path to your version of business success. I'm your host, Deirdre Martin, and I've got a real treat for you today. In this special episode, we're sinking our teeth into the fantastic world of ergonomics, discovering how it plays a pivotal role in customer experience. So, I don't know about you, but there have been times where I've experienced maybe minor, but some level of discomfort, be it in a shop, an office, or sometimes even just browsing online. If you've ever experienced anything like that or concerned that maybe your clients do as it relates to your business, you're going to love this episode. We're honored to have Niamh Pentony of Boyne Ergonomics as our guest speaker today. And let me tell you, she's got the lowdown on all things comfort and how to design your spaces and more to delight your clients. We'll be chatting about seating, lighting, noise, screens, temperature, and ventilation for clients. Never mind your website, that's in there too, because let's face it, nobody wants to engage or do business in a space that's more challenging than an escape room. So grab your favorite ergonomic chair, find the perfect room temperature, and let's get cozy with Niamh as we explore the ins and outs of ergonomics and its impact on customer experience. This is definitely one episode you won't want to miss. Right before we dive into today's conversation, I'd like to remind you all to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of the Master Your Business podcast. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us keep bringing you these engaging and insightful discussions. And if you're enjoying the show, we'd be so thrilled if you could take a moment to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps new listeners discover the show. So go ahead, spread the love, and let's get this amazing community growing together. It's fantastic to have you on the Master Your Business podcast. You're very welcome.
Thanks for having me, Deirdre. Thank you so much. I'm very excited. We
Well,
always love talking about what we do.
absolutely. And fantastic to have you here with us to talk precisely about what you do. So rather than me launching to telling everybody what that is, why don't you share what you do with everybody who's listening?
Oh, well, of course. So what I call myself is a workplace ergonomic consultant. And what that means is I work with employers to make the workplace safer, more comfortable, so that their employees are happy and healthy and safe and productive. So that makes up the bulk of my work at the moment. And it's very interesting, very different. All environments, it could be home, it could be school, it could be shops. It crosses all sectors.
Amazing. And so workplace ergonomics. What exactly is ergonomics?
What I would say is very much like your area of customer experience. It's very much a holistic area. So we are looking at fitting the task, fitting the environment, fitting the workspace to the person that's using it. So it means that you have to know who the end user is going to be, and you're adapting it to make sure that they can use it safely without any discomfort, and that they can use it effectively so that they can be productive. So very much like customer experience, you need to know who you are fitting it to so that you can make it work for them.
Okay, so let's elaborate on that a little bit more, okay? Because I'm thinking, well, and maybe listeners are thinking, well, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my customers? So let's imagine that, I'm an accountant and I have clients who come in and, I bring them into a meeting room or a boardroom or whatever. And what do I need to be mindful of in terms of ergonomics then? And what sort of difference does that make to my clients and their experience with us?
Yeah, well, you'd look at it from two different angles. So if we look first, say, at your example, the accountant, well, they'd want to make sure that they're working safely, that they have their own workspace set up correctly. So they have the right chair, they have it at the right height for the desk, the screens are in the right position, and that they're taking their breaks. And that's so that they're comfortable doing their work, so they can be productive to get the work done that their clients need. So they need to keep themselves well, to focus on their own kind of work environment and workstation setup and how they do their job. And then if we look at it from the customer coming in, so you have to have a really good look at where are you bringing your customer when you sit down to have a chat. Is it tidy? Is there enough space for them to come in, sit down comfortably? Is the seating they're sitting in for your meeting comfortable? Or are they going to be shifting around and stretching their back after a few minutes because it's too hard or it's uncomfortable? Is the lighting okay? So if you're showing them, some spreadsheets, or if you're showing them some documents, can they see it? Is there background noise? Can you have a comfortable conversation without being interrupted by excessive background noise? Is the room you're using warm enough, or is it too warm? Is it comfortable? Is it ventilated? If you're going to be showing them lots of different bits and pieces on your computer screen, well, can they see it? How are you going to sit angled at each other so you can rotate and see everything? So I suppose how ergonomics comes into businesses and to the customer experience, the business owner has to make sure that they're doing everything they can to make sure that they're safe and comfortable so they can be their best selves for their customers. But then equally, you want to make sure that if your customer is coming to you, no matter what the environment, that it's safe for them to do so, that it's comfortable for them to do so, and that they'll be happy to come back again, and they won't kind of dread going to meet you because maybe your space isn't appropriate, or maybe they're not comfortable there, and they're kind of going in and going out trying to get the meeting done as quickly as possible because actually they don't really want to be there.
That makes total sense. And I think probably like a lot of business owners, they think about, is the space clean and tidy? Some people might think about that and others might not, right?
Yeah.
But let's imagine they think about that. And probably then the next thing they're going to think about is, do the seats look right? Is the lighting fancy, or is it functional? In terms of noise, that might not even be a consideration. But temperature and ventilation, the other things you touched on there, Niamh, I think are really vital as well. So let's break down those little bits and say from an office space, from a customer's perspective first. Because don't worry, folks, I will bring Niamh back around to talk about us. For those of us working at a desk all day, right? So from a customer's perspective, if you're in the space where clients are coming in and you're engaging with them, what is the right kind of seating to have for those types of people, Niamh?
Yeah. Well, first thing I'll say, I'm going to give you an example of something that was really, really poorly set up, okay, for customers. And then I can bring you back into what changes we would make there. So there's a company that springs into my mind that I would have engaged with a lot many years ago. And when you went to meet with them, you were brought to a waiting area, a waiting room. And in this waiting room, there was your standard kind of TV on the wall, your water cooler, your carpets, the lovely wallpaper. It was really, really gorgeous room. But the chairs that they had in it were perspex, clear perspex, kind of armchair, dining chair type seats with hard arms. So this was one solid perspex unit. It was slippy. It was very narrow. So if you were slightly larger, if you were slightly overweight, if you were pregnant, you could not sit comfortably in that chair because the arms would press into your hips. And that was a really, really simple thing that caused a lot of problem. And I would see people come in and kind of look at the chairs and go, oh, and some people would stand or they'd pace in the hall rather than come in and sit in the chairs. They were incredibly uncomfortable. After 2 minutes, you were sliding forward. You couldn't actually sit.
Okay, so what I'm hearing here is looks are not everything, because those
No.
perspex chairs are cool, right?
Oh, they
My
love the
daughter's
parts.
got one in her bedroom.
Yeah, they
Has
love
a
the parts.
perspex chair in her bedroom. It looks amazing. It looks so clean. It's kind of like glass.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's slippy to sit on and not so comfortable. And actually, you know, as you're talking about that, what's springing to mind is, I don't know, I think I saw that on a movie. I don't know what movie it was, but it was like in the waiting room for people going for interview for some job role in some tech or IT company. What they had were like bean bags for people to sit on in the waiting area. So like, you know yourself, when you sit in a bean bag, you're inclined to slip forward.
That's nearly the other extreme. It's the other extreme.
Yeah.
And you're saying about your daughter having a chair, like it's probably absolutely perfect for her to use it. And she's the person using it. But this was what we call a multi-user space. You don't know who's going to be using it. So it has to be tailored to be comfortable for at least 95% of people that are going to come in that door. So if you were kitting out an office with your kind of customers in mind, you'd want to make sure that firstly, yes, of course, the seating has to be solid. But I would make sure that there is some padding in the seat, that there is a slight bit of padding in the backrest as well, and that it's not made of a slippery material like the perspex, or even sometimes equally some of the kind of leather or faux leather surfaces that get a bit sticky and a bit uncomfortable to sit on when it's warm. So you just want, I see them a lot where they're the cantilever chair where the seat kind of curves into the bottom and on a metal frame, and there's padding on the seat. They're usually very comfortable. There's no armrests on them, so we're not kind of concerned with somebody not being able to fit into it. They're quite sturdy, so a lot of them will have quite a high maximum weight range, and they're comfortable, and a little bit of give in them. So you'll see if people are in waiting rooms, so a lot of times they're kind of bouncing in the seat. They could be nervous, they could be excited. People kind of have a bit of a fidgety energy sometimes in waiting rooms, and that can help with that too. So that's what I was looking for. And when I go into spaces and I'm in waiting areas, my mind always goes to the seat first and go, what are we going to sit on here? And sometimes I go, really, really, you want your customer sitting in this? This is not a good first impression.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I love that you brought it back to the type of movements that they might be making in the chairs, or that the chairs allow them to make. Because you're so right. I mean, you know, when you think about sitting in a waiting room, depending on where you're going or what it's for, the customer might feel intimidated. They might feel worried or anxious about what the conversation is going to be. So having a chair that's comfortable is definitely a great place to start if they have to wait for even a few minutes before they come and meet you. And, you know, and that's something as well, that just to come back to this point from my own previous experience in offices and sort of retailing, where you're guiding clients, is that, you know, if somebody has to wait for a number of minutes, it's ask them to take a seat, guide them towards the seating area, because if you don't, they'll stay standing. People will stand. You kind of have to tell them what to do. And so, Okay, that's great, Niamh. Right. I'm interested to learn more. So talk to us about the lighting and the screens and things like that when you go into the office space. What kind of steps or actions could people take in that regard?
The first one is when it comes to lighting, you want to make sure you have enough, but also that it's adjustable because you know yourself, the light level, the natural light level here changes within a minute. I can even see my own light level on the screen changing as the sun and clouds are moving. But because it's not, especially in Ireland, it's so inconsistent. So if you say, for example, have an area where either you're working or you're meeting a client and you're bringing them, relying on a bit of natural light and one overhead light realistically won't be enough. And if you have somebody who has issues with their vision, they wear glasses, and you're trying to show them some documents or you're trying to show them a spreadsheet on a screen, if the light level is not bright enough, that's going to be a big struggle for them. And they might, again, depending on how well you know the person, they may not be comfortable telling you. They may miss an important piece of information, and then you can have a miscommunication. So ideally, what I'd like to see, what I do like to see in spaces are you've got your natural light, you've got your standard overhead light, but then you have, like the lamp behind you there, what we call the ambient light. So it's not a desk lamp, but it's another light in the room that you can turn on to illuminate that space if you need it. You may not need it every day, but it's there if you do. And you can walk into a room and say, actually, yeah, it's a little bit dull in here today. The clouds are out. We'll pop on that lamp there. And
Mm.
it can be changed. And again, you have people who are photosensitive. So I would always try and avoid fluorescent lighting, the old style fluorescent lighting that flickers and is quite harsh, because there are people who are photosensitive and can get discomfort or even migraines, cluster headaches triggered by that particularly the old style fluorescent lighting. But a lot of spaces have moved toward the LED, which is great. It's a lot
Yeah.
less triggering for people. Yeah.
That's so interesting because again, like, if somebody is coming into your office and you have fluorescent lighting and each time they come in, they end up with a headache,
Yeah.
but they're going to associate what you do
Yeah.
working with you as literally giving them a headache.
Yeah, and they'll avoid coming into you. They'll avoid, and eventually that could turn into avoiding working with you. If they have
Wow.
this negative association with you because of your environment, you can be giving the best customer service. You could be doing everything they want and more in terms of the service you provide them. But if they don't like going to you, eventually they will start to step away from you.
That's so interesting. And again, not something I've ever considered. And like ambient lighting, I love. I have like loads of lamps around here actually, because the lighting in my office space, people who are following me or watching me on videos ever or have ever been on a Zoom with me, my door is usually open because the window, the natural light that comes into my room otherwise is so small that I keep the windows open. I've got lighting over here on top of my cabinets, and I usually have two ring lights here as well. Like there's one,
Yeah.
and I have another one on the desk. And then I have another, it's like an LED strip because my
Yeah.
walls are white and it bounces the light off the wall. Like, so lighting for me is huge, but also I kind of feel like I draw energy from that light as well, Niamh. Does that make sense?
It does. It does, especially the tones of light's very important. So what I tend to find is areas that have like a cool temperature light or that neutral temperature light, people kind of do get that energy from it. And then more kind of yellow toned, the warm temperature lighting, that's more soothing, that's more relaxing. And people, I don't want to say they find it draining, but they find they're quite relaxed. It's not energizing, it's quite relaxing as opposed to the more cool or the neutral toned lights.
Yeah,
And
and that
again, the
makes
type
total
you
sense.
want. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and like if you look at a restaurant, for example, they tend to have those warmer lights and candle lights, which is warmer, right?
Yeah, yeah, because you want people to be relaxed and
Yeah.
enjoy their time. You want it to feel intimate and close. So that's what they're aiming for. Whereas if you're in, a work environment for the most part, you tend to maybe avoid the cool, you'd go more for the kind of neutral tone light,
Hmm.
because it suits most people.
And let's say somebody listening is in the medical space, that maybe they're a dentist or they're in healthcare. Like typically those environments tend to be very sterile and the lighting tends to be very bright and fluorescent.
Mhm.
So what could they do to maybe change the ambience and the atmosphere, but still have the lighting in a way that's conducive to the work that they're going to do?
The issue there, I suppose, with trying to get something that is user, customer, client friendly versus the task that they have to do. A lot of times, if someone's gone into the dentist or if someone's gone into the doctor, there's a level of inspect. The doctor may need to look at something. The dentist may need to look at something. Well, we know they do. So they need that cool lighting. They need that bright lighting to be able to see or inspect whatever they're going to look at. But that is, of course, it's not a comfort for me or you going in. It's not relaxing. It's not comfortable. But that's where you got a clash between the tasks that they're going to do versus how we feel when we go in. So we do always associate the doctors with this kind of sterile lighting. What you can do, and what I have seen done actually in a local GPs here that I was working with them before, and they did it as part of a refit, is what they actually had was in the surgeries, they didn't use the overhead fluorescent light all the time. So they had ambient lighting on the wall that was kind of a cooler or a warmer temperature, so more like that kind of relaxing feel. And what they would do is, if the consultation didn't require an inspection or any kind of examination, they just left those lights. But if there was a level of examination required, those lights went off, the overhead light went on, and then their inspection lamp came on. And they changed the lighting if they needed to. But again, if you have somebody going in, and one of the reasons they actually did it, which I thought was really, really brilliant, was they were seeing a lot of their patients with mental health difficulties. They just found that this kind of warmer lighting, the uplighters on the wall and the kind of lamp in the corner that were warm, gave them a more relaxed feeling when they were coming in to discuss what issues they were having. They didn't need the harsh light because there was no examination required, no physical examination. They were coming in for a chat. And they needed to feel safe.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah, brilliant idea.
Absolutely love that. And oh my gosh, and that really is being customer centric and putting the customer and the end user, to your point, it's putting them, at the forefront of your thoughts as you're designing your space. And this really comes back to brand too, right? And I think a lot of people overlook this aspect when it comes to designing those servicescapes for their brands. And the servicescape is the environment that people see when they engage with you, whether it's online or in person. But the lighting and how important that is, like Niamh's just given that's an incredible example, Niamh. I think really, really nice and heartwarming to hear that people are doing stuff like that. That's cool. Yeah.
It's great to see, yeah.
Okay, so that's the seating, the lighting. Now talk to us about noise. What do we need to be mindful of in terms of noise?
Just simply that there's not too much background noise, there's not too much distracting noise. Like before I came online with you, actually, funny enough, one of my neighbours had started to cut their grass. So I knew that we were going to be having a conversation. So I went round, I closed the windows, I've closed the doors, and I've brought the noise level down as comfortably as I can. And that's what you need to do. If you're going to have a one-on-one conversation with your customers, you want them to be the focus, what they're saying to be the focus. And equally, you want them to be able to hear what you're saying. And if there is distraction noise, whether it's printers, whether it's the hum of conversation, whether it's the hum of the fluorescent lights, whatever that distraction might be, that's going to pull their attention away from you. Equally, it might pull your attention from them. And then you can have miscommunication. And we don't want that at all when you're dealing with your clients and your customers. You want everything to be clear, that when the conversation is over, everyone knows what was said and what the next action points are.
Yes, yes, yes. And for those of you listening today, Bruno, my Bernese mountain dog, is right here on that floor beside me. So if you're picking up some snoring or heavy panting, I do promise it's all coming from Bruno. Yeah, he was outside but barking at the postman. So I brought him in and I thought he'd be quieter. But hopefully that's not distracting from our conversation today, Niamh. And I'm trying to keep on mute when Niamh is speaking. But this is the reality too when you work from home. There are these noises. And even in the office, I certainly know when in the last retail office that I worked in the bank, we were right on the high street in Kilkenny City. And so, because we were on the high street and our windows were literally on the street as things would pass by, like trucks and cars, some noisy cars sometimes, it got very loud. But that was something completely outside of our control. So, if people listening are in a situation like that, are there extra measures that they could take that would help maybe reduce those sounds in those sorts of circumstances? Or are they caught like I kind of felt we were at the time?
It depends on the nature of your business. So like if you take your example, If you're in a bank, your teller stations, for example, are set. You can't move them. That's where the bank tellers are, and that's where they have to be. And all you can do in that situation is, manage as best you can. Pause when the noise gets too loud, or ask people, politely to repeat themselves, apologize that you can't hear them because of the noise, let them know it's not them, it's the background noise. And kind of what I always say is kind of make a little joke. Oh yeah, make a little half-hearted joke about it, try and laugh it off, rather than let it become a source of tension, because it can get very frustrating. However, if you're in a different kind of environment where you can actually say, maybe have an assigned kind of quieter area, that if someone's coming in to talk to you and you're in your normal area and there's a lot of, like, there could be construction, there could be roadworks, all the different things that go on, you could say, do you know what? It's a little bit noisy here today with this work. Well, I'm going to take you over to this area here that we don't normally use, but we'll use it today because it's a bit quieter, because it's further from the source of the noise. Now, it's great if you have that. Not everyone does, but that's what I'd always try and make. And it could be a back office. It could be just a quieter corner of the shop somewhere, but I would always have somewhere, if you can, set up for those times where you just need a little bit more private space away from any source of noise. And the source of noise is usually going to be external, because if it's internal, you will have a little bit more control over it and when it's going to happen, or if it doesn't happen.
Yes, that makes total sense. And it shouldn't be a major ask or challenge to do that, right? So, okay, so that's seating, lighting, noise. You mentioned screens as well, and turning screens and that mobility around things like that. Can you elaborate on that for me?
Yeah, like if you think about something, if I've gone into an office and I'm sitting down to meet with, say, for example, my accountant, and he's talking about whatever's going on for the last year, and he wants me to have a look at something. So here, have a look at my screen. He shouldn't expect me to come around to them and lean over the shoulder and have a look at the screen. He should be able to either turn the screen towards me to show me what I need to see, or turn the laptop towards me. Or in some of the bigger offices, they will now have, screens up on the wall that they can connect the laptops in, so we can actually both look at it at the same time. But I would never expect, if you're linking with a customer and you want to show them something, you make sure you can move that screen to them and not expect them to get into these awkward, strained positions or into your personal space to try and see something. You should be bringing the images to them and make sure they can see it.
That makes total sense. And again, in the bank, what we would have done was we did have those swivel screens.
Yeah.
We had a laptop that connected to, a screen on the desk, which is actually the exact same setup I have here right now. But we would have been able to swivel the screen then so that people could see that. But another thing, and I learned this years ago, for sales conversations, folks, for those of you who are meeting people in person, it's a really nice approach when you're having a sales conversation with somebody is not to sit opposite them on the desk anyway. It's to sit. So if you've got like a rectangular desk and you've got a client, the chairs are probably seated one opposite the other. If you bring your chair around so that you and the client are at a right angle, you're like elbow to elbow then, as opposed to facing each other. That's a much gentler way to have a conversation with somebody. It's a little bit more intimate without being on top of them. But equally, if it's a laptop you have to share, then it's easy, or if you're both looking at sheets of paper, it's much easier to do that. Have you anything to add to that, Niamh, let's say from an ergonomic perspective?
Just that I do see that approach more and more, especially in like the HR area, when people are being brought in for their appraisals or their reviews, that it's no longer a lot of times across the desk. That can be very intimidating if you're going in to be reviewed, like that. It's kind of at that right angle next to the person. And funny, the same again in some GP offices where they've got rid of the desk that's blocking them and the patient, that actually they're at right angles, they're close, for that intimacy, for that feeling of being comfortable and being close and being able to disclose what you need to. It's all about trying to make your end user, your customer, comfortable in your presence.
Yeah. And I think probably COVID has maybe impacted these things in some ways over the last couple of years. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that in terms of in-person meetings and spaces. Like, have people fallen into bad habits now when it comes to things like this? Or what are you seeing?
Funny, I actually see the opposite. So in a lot of places that I go into, it's like people missed the intimacy so much that I see a lot of, especially in big companies, a lot of things that could be an email are now an in-person chat. A lot of things that might have been a Zoom are now the in-person chat. And people, I think, missed the intimacy And as soon as if they felt safe to do so, they're actually now nearly overloading a little bit on that kind of face-to-face interaction and being comfortable in a space with another person. So of course it will still be, I do, like I go into chemists and I go into other environments where they still have the perspex screen. There is still that level of separation, but definitely in a workplace environment now, I feel that people have nearly gone the other way, where they're just craving that level of intimacy and comfort, that they love the one-to-ones, you know, and sitting close to each other, and no longer this big distance between each other.
Great, great. That's amazing. And I suppose not something I see all too often, because my meetings tend to be online with people and it's rare that I do go out and see clients in person. But, have passport and can travel, folks. Okay, so talk to us about temperatures and ventilation, Niamh. How important is that from a customer perspective? And like in Ireland, right? And I know a lot of listeners, we've got listeners in the US and in Canada and all sorts of places around the world. But in Ireland, our temperatures tend to be like pretty steady most of the time. And then we have a random heat wave or a lot of cold, right? So
Yeah.
what do we need to be mindful of here?
Again, when your customer is meeting with you or when you're meeting with your client, they shouldn't notice how they physically feel. So they shouldn't notice that they're shivering. They shouldn't notice that they've goosebumps. Equally, they shouldn't notice that they're sweating. And certainly they shouldn't be paranoid about showing that they're sweating or feeling uncomfortable in the seat because of the heat. Again, if these are feelings that they're having because the room is too cold, because the window's open and there's a big wind blowing through and it's ventilated but it's cold, or equally because the windows are closed, it's warm outside and it's stuffy, they're all things that are going to detract from their attention to you. And then equally might distract you, because you might start to notice that they look uncomfortable or that they look unhappy, and then you're kind of wondering, oh sugar, are they unhappy with something I'm saying? Are they unhappy with something I'm providing? When actually they might just be cold or they might just be uncomfortably hot. But all these things are going to detract from how they perceive you and then how you're reading them.
That makes sense. And again, one of the things that you touched on earlier was lighting and natural light. And let's imagine then that it's a bright office space that somebody's in and there's loads of natural light. So when we do get the sun, the impact that can have in terms of, heat in the space. So what can people do when the sun is coming in, you've got loads of natural light? How can they sort of mitigate against that so people are comfortable? Because I love what you said there about they shouldn't notice the temperature. That's powerful, actually. They shouldn't notice it. So it's going to take a lot of consideration to factor all of those other bits, right?
It does. And having windows that can open like that on a particularly hot day, especially when you go to meeting rooms that are full glass, having windows that can open. And again, a lot of buildings will have an internal system that you can adjust the temperature, you can adjust the airflow in the room. So if you're going to meet with somebody, I would always recommend popping into whatever space you're going to use a few minutes before the meeting in your normal clothes that you plan on wearing, and just kind of spend a minute in there, get your stuff set up and see yourself how you find it. So the person's going to sit here. Is there a big glare of sun beaming down on this chair? Well, how about we move the chair over there? We'll move ourselves this way. We'll open a window. We'll pull a blind. Like, go into the room first yourself and see how you feel it, and make adjustments that you feel that you need. And I'm laughing because I'm actually thinking yesterday, I was doing an assessment on site yesterday, and it was an industrial space that wasn't fully closed in. And as I was trying to take my notes, just my handwritten notes, my hand was actually so cold that I couldn't write properly with the pen. And my reading my notes then last night, but they barely made sense because it was so cold, and I was unprepared for the cold as well. But I couldn't actually take my notes properly.
Gosh, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's the other extreme, right? And I think
Yeah.
for people who do experience colder temperatures than we do in Ireland, that's something to be mindful of as well, because if people are noticing things like that, that's going to impact the overall impression they have of your brand and your business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's loads of stuff, Niamh, about clients. Is there anything else that people need to be mindful of, in your opinion, as it relates to clients and things that impact the experience in that way?
Yeah, like if you look at now, obviously, if we look at kind of e-commerce and websites, and I think this is an area that's slightly overlooked, and I know if that does form a huge part of what you do and the customer experience. I think if people are selling online, whether it's a service or whether it's a product, they really, really need to have a look at the website, because your website has to be designed with your end user in mind, not with you in mind, not with what you like, what your end user likes. And I even found this at my own website when I was setting it up a few years ago. The guy working with me was absolutely brilliant. He had to remind me, this isn't for, you're not selling to you, you're selling to your end users. So what do they want? So making sure that you have your website set up at basically aimed at your target market. And of course, as part of your customer experience setup, you will know who your target market is. You will know who your client avatar is. So you need to step into their shoes, preferably working with someone external, because it becomes hard to see it when you're in the middle of it. To design your website in such a way that it is user friendly to your end user. And from an ergonomic point of view, what we want is, if you look at your homepage, it's clear, it's precise, it's concise. Someone lands on that homepage and they know exactly who you are and what you do. And don't overload it. It should be very, very simple, very clear, concise. One page, one item, basically. Here's the homepage, here's who I am, here's what I do. Then you should have your structure. So you should have your titles, your headings, your paragraph, very, very clearly structured to make it easy to read. It's not easy to read. Your target is not going to read it. They're going to, if it's confusing or if it doesn't make sense, they're not going to read it. So it should be really, really and a consistency between the pages, so that, you know, they, on any page, they know that they're on your website. They know that this is Deirdre's website. I might be on a different page, but I still know she's there. Her picture mightn't be on this page, but I still know I'm on Deirdre's website. I know this is her. And your menu should be really, really intuitive, should make sense to your user. And I think one thing that some websites miss out are the breadcrumbs. So do you know, for example, if you go on a shopping website, so pick one that shopping retailers, and you want to buy yourself a top. So you go on, you click into women, you click into clothes, you click into tops. You can see on the top of your screen, women, clothing, tops. So you can see the journey that you have taken from the homepage to where you are now, which means that equally you can find your way back quite quickly instead of having to hit back, and trying to navigate your way back to the homepage. If where you ended up is not where you wanted to be, well, then you can just follow those breadcrumbs to get yourself back to where you want to be. So having that on your website can be really, really helpful for your target market, because we want to make website navigation as easy as possible. You know this yourself, and knowing your end user, well, do you need to be optimized for laptop users? Do you need to be optimized for mobile users? Where are these people looking for you? So you can kind of optimize your site as best you can, making sure that you pick fonts that are easy to read, that you don't go for the one that looks kind of edgy and funky and cool because that's your brand. So it's no good if they can't read it, you know? So I always think of it, is it Roboso font?
So, yeah.
It's a really easy, clear, crisp font.
Mm-hmm.
It mightn't be your edgy, it mightn't be your style, but it's very easy for your end user to read. So a lot of considerations, and I think that's something people miss when they set up their website. And you'll know yourself from working with people, sometimes it's just because they jump into it. They go, I need a website. And they just throw it all there and here's everything about me. But it doesn't make sense, or it loads too slowly because the graphics are too big and there's too many. And if a website's frustrating to use, people will just leave it.
Yeah. Oh
Take
my gosh.
consideration.
It's like you're in my brain. One of the things that regularly comes up, and this is something that I see from clients that I work with who have been established for quite some time and maybe designed their own brand or came up with color schemes that they like themselves. And then when I work with them, one of the things that I do is I take their colors and I check them for accessibility in terms of how they've been using them. So there was one particular person who had reached out to me recently to work with them, and they wanted some support with their team in terms of driving home what customer experience is really. And one of the things, as I was kind of browsing and learning, doing my desk research about this particular company, one of the things I saw was that they had this Facebook post, and on the back of the Facebook post, the color was pink, right? Like not a neon pink, but a bright colored pink. Actually, probably something similar to my sticky notes, right? Like a pink, bright pink sticky note. And the writing on top of this pink background was a green color. And so, like, I took a screenshot of it and I plugged it into like a free software that's available online and got it to check for accessibility. Now, here's the thing with this, and Niamh, I'm sure you could write books on this stuff, but why I checked that is because number one, I knew that this particular company, their end user tends to be men. And when I checked the visibility on this in terms of accessibility, it told me that people who experience color blindness are not going to be able to read this font very easily because of the colors. And again, the font wasn't very big. The third thing was because their end user are men, and men are the ones who tend to experience color blindness more than women, it was kind of making me think, oh my gosh, they're really not supporting their end users with this, even though it might look cool and it stands out on social media. There's like loads of reasons why there could be a better way to do this, right? What are your thoughts around things like that as well, Niamh? Because I see this quite a lot. Same with fonts. The fonts could be cursive or script fonts, but they're hard to read on different sites, like on different browsers, sometimes like Microsoft versus Chrome versus Safari. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, like if you look at something like that, you're all right. Men do tend to be more colorblind or have more higher incidence of color blindness, and it does tend to be on the red and green spectrum where it does occur. Like I know in a previous job we used to actually do Ishihara color blindness tests with people, and I was there like 14 years. I never came across a female with it, but weekly easily came across men who couldn't make out certain numbers or certain shapes on the Ishihara plates because they had a degree, and it's not always full color blindness. It can just be a degree of it. And I think what that shows there is they obviously just didn't do their research. They didn't think when they put the post up, it could have been a last minute thing or something they just put together quite quickly with no thought for who their end user is, no thought to who they're targeting. They just wanted it to stand out and look funky. But even like if you think of the colors they chose, they just don't work. They're not appealing. You scroll and you see that, you recoil from it a little bit. So no thought was given to it. It was something clearly that was put together, and you do absolutely see that a lot. I see it on social media too, or people, and I've been guilty of it myself. I know I have, of people putting up videos sometimes and not captioning them. And I will do that sometimes and afterwards go, oh, sugar, I forgot to put my captions on that. Because, if there's a post I've put up, if there's a video I've put up where I'm speaking, well, then what if the person can't hear? They don't know what I'm saying. They might not want to read the caption because I haven't made the post accessible to them. So why would they put the effort in to try to read the caption to see what I'm talking about? Because I haven't made the effort to make it accessible to them. So using captions is very important.
Okay. This is so incredible. And I'm actually surprised by how much of what you're talking about overlaps with the work that I do with people as well when it comes to the fundamental aspects of their brand strategy and style. So that surprised me, I have to admit. So in terms of us as business owners, and like I'm sitting at my desk here today, and a lot of the people that I work with are professional service providers, so they tend to be at desks a lot of the time. What are your top 3 tips to make sure that we're well and healthy at work in terms of desk space and so on?
Well, the first thing is don't sit there for a long time. My tip to everybody, no matter how good your chair, how good your desk, how good your lighting, if you spend a long time either seated or standing as I am here in the one position at a desk, after about 40-45 minutes, your muscles are going to start getting stiff and sore and tired. Your productivity is going to decrease because your circulation has decreased. So the muscles aren't getting enough oxygen. Your brain is not getting all the most oxygen that it needs. So you're not going to do your best thinking. You're not going to do your best working, and your muscles are going to get stiff and sore. So everybody, no matter what their job is, should not be in a static position really for any more than 45 minutes. So I always tell people, before we even look at where you work, look at how you work. Break your tasks into smaller chunks. And when you get these smaller chunks done, especially when you're at home, go get yourself a glass of water. Go let the dog out. Go stick the wash on. The action doesn't matter. The movement doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be purposeful, but you need to leave that chair. You need to leave that space and walk around for a minute or two just to let one set of muscles relax, activate the other set, boost the circulation, and come back and then go into the next task. So instead of thinking, I find a lot of people will go, I need to get this done by 3 o'clock. And they will sit there from 9 till 3, bar 10 minutes for a coffee. And that's what they will do. You don't have to get this done by 3 o'clock. You might get this bit done by 10:30. You might try and get this bit done for 11:15. Break it into smaller chunks to allow yourself the freedom to move. And if you have a job like yourself and like myself, where there can be a lot of virtual meetings, there can be a lot of calls, well, then learn to take some of them on the go. So maybe link into your client and go, you know, we have a call booked for today at 11, but you know what, the sun's shining. How about we log into this on our phones and take it out for a walk, and we'll walk and talk, especially coming into this time of year. Take it outside, take it in a different room, get yourself a wireless headset or log in through your phone. Try and schedule a bit of movement into your day, because the chances are if you're working from home, one of the things that's keeping you at the desk, it's the meeting. So
So
change it up
true.
a little bit.
Yeah, I'm the one that's guilty of sitting at the desk and not moving until 3 o'clock, and I have the whole thing done, That's definitely me. And so what I try to do, but I haven't been good at it lately, and it's a habit I think as well, Niamh, because I do have a sit stand desk. After I spoke to you before, I went and invested in one. And like it's electric as well. So I just need to press a button and it goes up. It's really cool. And one of the things is just remembering to stand up. And so what
Yeah.
I try to do is when I do have a 30, 45-minute call, I try to remember to stand up for them. So folks, if you're listening and if you ever hop on a call with me, feel free to tell me to stand up if you see me sitting down.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
accountability for you. Okay, great. Sorry, tell us some more. What that was your number one tip. What other two have you got?
The next one is look at your furniture. And I'm just talking about your desk and your chair, okay? Make sure the desk itself, it doesn't have to be your big office desk that you would have had on site. It doesn't have to be, because they're quite big. We don't all have space for that. But it needs to be big enough for the equipment that you use. That is all on the one surface. And that surface is sturdy and stable. It doesn't have to be a height adjustable desk like we have. Your fixed height normal desk will do, as long as it is big enough for everything that you have. It's sturdy, so it's not wobbling and shaking when you're typing on it, and that it has room for you underneath. So what I mean is you sit in your chair, legs facing forward, there's nothing in contact with your knees or your thighs, and you have space to move your legs underneath the desk. A lot of people, thankfully not as many as early COVID, but there was a period there where people were sitting at all kinds of old kind of family computer desks. I've seen anything, drawers, chests of drawers, vanity units. They just don't work. And if you're not sitting correctly, if you're not sitting facing forward, you don't have space for all your equipment, it's not going to work. You're not going to be productive because you're going to get sore. So have a look at your desk and then have a look at your chair. So I am a big advocate for getting an actual proper office chair. If you're working from home, the days of sticking the cushions on the kitchen chair, they're gone. They're gone. If home is a permanent part of how you work, invest in yourself. Get yourself an office chair. And it doesn't have to be €1,200. The chair I use myself, I think, was somewhere around €270. And it's absolutely spot on perfect. But what it needs to have is adjustments. So you need to have it on your wheels. You need the swivel seat, and that's just so you can move easily. That's minimal effort to get in and out of your space. You need to be able to adjust it in height, so you can get to the right height for your desk. And importantly, the one that a lot of chairs miss, you need to be able to adjust the backrest. And what I mean by that is you need to be able to lock it at different angles, not just have it kind of swinging. It actually should be lockable at a different angle, so it sits against your back when you're typing. It's no good having it way back here and you're on a call, that's great. And then when you go to type, you pull yourself forward. That doesn't really work at all for your back. Make sure the backrest is adjustable and it has support that you feel in your lower back. Getting those two things right makes such a difference. Having a good solid desk and a good decent chair with adjustability can make a massive difference to you when you're working.
Love that. And again, you inspired me before when I heard you speak in Niamh to go out and do that. And I did eventually get myself a chair that does all of those things. So yeah, I could be sitting back, but I don't usually because I'm going to be standing on cause. So you won't see.
Yes.
But no, you're right. And adjusting it. Okay, so what's tip number 3?
The last one is, so you've got your movements, you've got your good equipment, making sure you're using it properly. Because I have spoke to people, many people working from home since COVID, who have sent me photographs of their home workstation, and I think, oh, this is brilliant. Look at that desk, look at that chair. This is going to be fantastic. And then I meet with them and they're sitting down nearly on the floor, shoulders are up at their ears, because they're not positioned correctly for what they're using. So, and a lot of people will judge how they should be sitting at the desk by how they feel at their feet. And I always say, ignore your feet. Get your 2 hands, put them on the table. You can do this now while you're listening. Get the 2 hands, put them on the table. Inhale, exhale, relax the shoulders. When you do that, your arm should not drop. There should be a straight line here, hand on the mouse. There should be no drop. That means you're the right height for your desk. If there's a drop, bring your chair up. If you bring your chair up, and like me, even with an adjustable desk at this lowest setting, my feet still don't reach the floor when I have myself at the right height. If your feet don't plant fully, get something underneath. Get a footrest, get a foam roller, get the child step from the bathroom, get the yoga brick, whatever you have in the house, but just put something solid under your feet so you can sit back in the chair, solid in the feet, relaxed in the shoulders, and then just make sure your screens are kind of level with your eye line so you can sit ear over shoulder over hip. That's what you're aiming for. Not this kind of ramrod straight. Our spines are not straight, they are curved, and it's supposed to be. But we want ear, shoulder, hip in line, lower back supported. So you've got your movement, you've got the right equipment, and now you're positioned correctly. That's the trifecta. Once you can manage that, that will help to keep you well, which means that you can then provide the best service to your clients and your customers to give them that customer experience that we want.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, there have been so many golden nuggets that you've shared, Niamh.
Good.
I think people are going to be so impressed with when they hear this, and whether it's for themselves or for their clients, there's so many takeaways here. So tell us what's coming up for you and Boyne Ergonomics in the months ahead. Where can people find you? Tell us all of those bits.
Great. Well, you can find me online. So I'm on boyneergonomics.ie. I am on Instagram, Boyne_ergonomics. I'm on LinkedIn, both as myself, Niamh Pentony, and under Boyne Ergonomics, and Twitter at Niamh_Pentony. I also have my own podcast, little plug, called Ergonomically Speaking, where I talk a lot about different issues that I come across in my day-to-day, like how to find a good office chair, like what's a good desk, what's a good keyboard, what's a good mouse. So people can find that. The next 6 months, I think, are actually going to be very exciting. Probably the biggest change since I started. So I recently finished a postdoc in neurodiversity, because this is something I'm coming across more and more in the workplace. Adults diagnosed ADHD, adult diagnosed autism. So working a lot with people to actually try and make adjustments and adaptations in that sense, not just the actual desk and chair. So there's a lot of work going on in that. And I am currently prepping, I'm hoping to expand in the last quarter to actually take on someone to work with me, because it's very busy, and we can't work on the business when we're working in the business, so we need a little bit of help. So yeah, a busy few months coming up.
Amazing. And Niamh, what kind of help are you looking for? Just again, in case there's anybody listening and they're a good fit for you. Is it somebody to do to go out and meet clients, or is it help in the background?
It'll be help in the background. It'll be, I'm not ready to hand over the reins on the ergonomics work just yet. It'll be a little bit of help in the background with the running of the business.
Well, kudos on doing that postdoc as well. I can see how valuable that's going to be to your clients and to their clients as well. It's going to be incredible. Niamh, thank you so much for joining me today. You are just so full of insightful and helpful knowledge and tips that really do boil down to making our lives and businesses better and make our overall customer experiences better. So thank you so much for joining us. Well, there you have it, folks. A huge thank you to Niamh Pentony for sharing her incredible insights into the world of economics. I certainly got a huge number of tips and insights in this episode. I really hope you did too. I was quite surprised to learn about the impact of ergonomics on customer experience. We've learned so much today about how comfort and design can make all the difference in creating delightful and memorable experiences for our clients, or even, as Niamh pointed out, ones that they shouldn't notice, which is actually a good thing too. So as you venture into your day, remember to keep an eye out for those little ergonomic touches that can transform a space, whether it's in your own work environment or the places you bring your clients into. Who knows, you might just find some inspiration to enhance your own customer interactions or simply enjoy a more comfortable life. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Master Your Business podcast on your favorite streaming platform. We appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. Join us next time for another engaging conversation, and until then, stay safe and comfortable.